Welcome back to the workshop. My name's Jack, this is Everyman Builds, and we are building an Ooznest Z1 Plus CNC router. In today's episode, we're going to do the wheel assembly and the Y plates. So there are 30 wheels to do, and each wheel needs 2 bearings, which I believe will be from a motion box, a wheel, and a precision shim, which I think is going to be from spacers. It does say that these are going to need some force to seat the bearings fully. So what I've done is got 2 pieces of MDF with a hole, a screw and a washer. I'm just going to place 1 bearing on there, the shim, the wheel. I'm going to press that. I'm going to put the other bearing on top, sandwich it in, and then squeeze it together, and hopefully that will help me get all 30 done slightly quicker, because I am not looking forward to this. There are 31 pieces in the packet, and it says that the one that's left over you shouldn't do anything with. So I will show you the first one. Hopefully that goes well. Make a hole in the bag, get 2 bearings, 1 wheel, and from here the precision shims. Now these to me just look like tiny washers, but I guess they are washers that are machined to a particular size because they need them to be this exact size. So we've got our little assembly here. We get 1 bearing, the wheel, and press that together. Maybe we'll do that one by hand first. Yeah, do that one by hand. That goes on there, that goes on there, that goes on there, that goes on like that. Big sandwich of pieces, squish it together, click, and that's 1 wheel done. And it still moves. 29 more to go. I'm just kidding, you're not going to watch this.
A few moments later.
So that actually didn't take as long as I thought it might. It took about 6 minutes to assemble those. There's 30 of them, they all spin freely. And there's 1 spare. I'm going to keep that one, those 2 bearings. I'm going to leave the precision shim in with the others. I will just wrap this up, put it in there. That's step 1 of the assembly done. I mean, that's got to be the easiest step. And I highly recommend getting yourself a couple of pieces of MDF, a washer and a bolt or a screw, just to use to clamp down. That worked really, really well. Definitely do that. Get yourself a little assembly line. I might just leave it like this. On to step 2. So step 2 of this build is the Y plate assembly. Obviously I need the Y plates, so I've got the inner and outer plates here. And for that I also need 2 nut blocks, 4 M5 button head 25mm bolts, 4 M5 nylock nuts, and the plates. And as well as that, I also need 8 wheels, 4 M5 button head 60mm bolts, 4 aluminium spacers at 6mm, 4 eccentric spacers at 6mm, 12 precision shims, 4 aluminium spacers at 9mm, and 4 M5 nylock nuts. What I like to do is have something around that I can put all the parts in that I need for that particular step. And then I don't have to look around for bags as I'm doing things. So I'm going to do that quickly now. We'll move this little jig out of the way, and then we'll get on with the assembly. So we have our pieces already in the box, and the first step is the nut blocks in the Y plate outer, and that's this one. It says to have the square hole on your left-hand side, so this is my left-hand side, and the nut blocks go here, tightened loosely, the bolts through from the back. And it doesn't look like there is an orientation for the nut blocks to go on, other than the recess for the nuts at the top. And with that one done, we then get a second to the inner plate, and it has the 3 holes at the bottom, the 4 holes across the top. And for this we need the rest of our pieces, and we go with it says to do with the bottom right wheel first, so we go with a 60mm bolt through, an eccentric spacer with the circular part this side downwards, so once we tighten it, it moves around. Then we have a precision shim, then we have a wheel, a 9mm spacer, a second wheel, another precision shim, another eccentric spacer with this time the circular part pointing upwards so that it goes into the other side of into the plate, like that. Another precision shim, and then an M5 nylock nut. I'm just going to put that loose for now because we're going to do the bottom left, it would be, as it was this way around. Flip that around, do that for the second one, and then the top one we do the same thing, but we replace the eccentric nuts with the aluminium spacers. So we have bolt. I'm going to flip this upside down again, or I'm going to stand it up actually so I can see what's going on inside. That's 3 of the 4 assemblies done. So I'm just going to tighten those 4 down now. It says the wheels should still spin freely, which they do there. So that's 1 assembly done. Wheels on there all spin freely. So we're going to do the same again. So the same again, but this time we're going to flip the Y plate around so the square is on the right hand side, or the rectangle there is on the right hand side. Same process again to get that attached. Now I am jumping ahead in the instructions here, and that's just because I've got this particular flow set up. I'm going to do this, then I can do what would be the previous step twice. So I'm grouping things together. Some people may not like doing it that way. I prefer to do it that way because it works for me. That's the second one done. So we now have 2 that are a book matched pair. And now the next step is to go back a step. We're going to go back step 3 of this. We've done step 4. We need to get some C channel. But what we want to do first is adjust the eccentric spacers so that there's the 6mm part facing downwards. So on the eccentric spacers here, there is a part that says 6mm. I'll do 1 with the eccentric nut adjusting spanner that I put somewhere safely, which was somewhere really safe. Here. We may be able to see that on there barely. There's a 6mm stamp on the eccentric nut. That faces downwards. So we'll do that to all 8 of them. I think that's easier to do when it's tightened because they're not going to move again. But I think the rest of this process, I would change the instructions myself and have what I did on the second one of these to be the standard, and that's not to assemble them one by one, but instead to assemble, there we go, all 4 of these at the same time, and that is lay this plate downwards, put 4 bolts through, put the 2 eccentric nuts, put the 2 aluminium spacers, then 4 shims, 4 wheels, 4 9mm spacers, 4 wheels, 4 precision shims, 2 eccentric nuts with the circle facing upwards as if we assemble it like that, 2 6mm spacers, this plate, 4 shims, 4 nuts, tighten it all down. That was a lot more, in my opinion, a lot more methodical and a better way of doing it. It does also help having all of the parts laid out at that point, because then you can just pick and place as opposed to where you're assembling one at a time and going through bags, finding a bag, getting one piece, putting it on, finding another bag, getting a piece, putting it on. So I think the instructions could be better there. I'm going to find the C channel now and then I'll be back. So I think this is a good point at which to open up the extrusions. Just to have them ready, I need some of them for the step that we're on right now. I've taken off the tie wraps and things like that. Now we can open this box, which is as nicely packaged, I would say, as the other bits. I mean, I say as nicely packaged, the extrusions are all bound and in foam, and the lead screws just down here are in a cardboard tube, and that's also wedged through the foam. So all I'm going to do to get this out is to cut the foam, and then I don't have to lift them all out at the same time. And I can't find my knife, so I'm using scissors like a child. For this bit, I just need the pieces that are right in the middle here, which is handy. We need extrusion D. And we should be able to just lift these out. I think what I'm going to do is take them out and lay them over the back of the table, just to get them out of the box, but out of the way. I need this piece, extrusion D. Keep that one aside, unpack the rest of the extrusions, and finally the lead screws. They actually have in their packing little labels for the foam blocks, so they know that This particular block goes in that box. Interesting. Efficient. Interesting. So, now that we've got that, we've got the 6mm part of the eccentric nut towards the bottom on both pieces. They are going to be facing towards the back of the rectangle, so the furthest part away from me. We've rotated that. Now we get the extrusion D in between the two rows of wheels. Set the extrusion in there. Flip it upside down so that it's resting solely on the non-adjustable wheels. And then with the 8mm eccentric nut adjuster, turn it until moving the extrusion D makes the wheel rotate, but not so tightly that it binds up. Just do that for these. So it should need a tiny bit of force to move them once they're in the right place, but not so much force that you end up breaking something. They should grip. They shouldn't be able to slip. If I rotate the wheel, it should move the extrusion and not be able to slip. So this one here, I can move it, but it does slip, so we'll tighten that just one more tiny bit. And now it doesn't slip. That one doesn't slip. That one doesn't even grab yet. So we'll tighten that a bit more. There we go. That's too loose. That's about right there. They're all tight, but they all move freely. And I believe that to know it's not too tight, we should be able to take this out and get it back in like that. And then we know it's not too tight, but it's also not too loose. What we should also do now is just double check that all of these nylock nuts have not come undone. There we go. One. Same again on this one. Good. That is that step done. Drag chain mount. So now we need to get some more pieces. The drag chain needs to be attached to this one here. So the left hand one where the rectangle is at the back. This is the second one. This is the first one. So we're going to put the first one to the side. We need two M5 button head 16mm bolts, the drag chain mount, two precision shims, and two M5 nylon nuts. So we're going to get two 16mm M5 button head bolts, two shims, and two nuts. And that's from the hardware box. These go onto here. So there are three holes just below the rectangle in a line. We don't use those ones, we use these two here. So put a bolt, through there, shim, nut just hand tight, and another one just hand tight. We're going to tighten those down now. I'm going to leave it a tiny bit loose because the bolts go through a slot rather than a hole. And that to me says that it needs to stay loose because it needs to be positioned at some point. It doesn't say it anywhere in the manual though, right now. Okay. And that is this step done. Step 2 done. we've got the Y-plate assembly, we've got 2 of them. The nut blocks, or the Acme blocks, or whatever you want to call them, are in. We've got the extrusion, or the wheels calibrated so the extrusion goes through nicely. It slots back in nicely. With a little bit of force, it should hold itself to an extent, but when moved, just with a touch of pressure, glide, which it does. Step 2 done. So we're going to cut it here, and in the next episode we'll do step 3, which I believe is ex-gantry. So I'll see you in that one. Take care.